you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
A pleasant greetings to all on this September the 7th edition of the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Good morning to everyone. We have a good show for you today. And if you would like to participate, you know the drill, but for those of you who are new, you can call this number, 516-453-9921. And be sure, if you have a question or a quick comment, to press the number 1 button and you will get in line. Please, ma'am, please, sir, to give your name also. And I would ask again, please, on your questions, you don't have to be so analytical. Just ask your question so that Mr. Fuller can answer it in a direct way, and we can get more people to get to their questions, and we don't have to necessarily rush. They have given me a countdown clock, so that I can judge the time and get the commercials in and so forth. So please, ma'am, please, sir, do that. Please, if you would. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And occasionally I will read your Gmails. And you can also go into the chat room where there are quite a few people already in there. Rita 888 is there. Still Learning 2 is there. Jacoby Duquesne 2 is there. My brother from London, where I understand it's sunny. That is London, England, where it's sunny. The JJ Killer is there, and Al Freedom is in there. But you can join that conversation, and you'll find out that a lot of people are saying, still learning. What have you learned this week? Okay. Or in the past week. Good morning, Rita 888. Yes, gotcha. All righty. So let me start off by saying good morning, Mr. Fuller, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Okay, Mr. Fuller is still learning. Before we go into the question, Mr. Fuller, what are you still learning this week? Or today?
Trying to learn how to be more focused, but first of all, finding out what is the focus, what it should be, and what the so-called it, 2 letters, IT, is about my existence. That word, what is it? We're all looking for it. What is it? What is it we're here for? Why was I born? Why was I born where I was born, when I was born? And what for? What am I supposed to be doing? What's the most important thing I'm supposed to be doing? What should I be focused on? And each person should ask themselves that each and every morning when they wake up, in my opinion, in the opinion of, I would say, which is given to me, logic, in the opinion of, quote, unquote, what we call logic, cause and effect. We're here. Lots of things are here, whatever H-E-R-E means. We're here. We're not there. We're here. So what are we doing here? What are we supposed to be doing in the universe, in the grand scheme of things? And when it comes down to just each and every person that has limited time. You're given time and energy. These are the two things you come into the world with, and the two things that you lose when you go out of this world. You lose time and you lose energy. What you started with, you lose it. Or rather, you might say you compensate by turning it back in. You just borrowed it anyway. Or it was given to you out of nowhere, and presumably for a reason. That's a long-winded answer, but that's the summation. That's how I wake up every morning. This morning when I got up, I came to this program with that. What is the focus? What is the IT, the it? What is the it? We're all looking for it. Everybody, either directly or indirectly. That one thing that really stands out above everything else about why we are here. And we're here to look for something to do. And what is it we're supposed to be doing? And your circumstances determine that. So we find out the it among that. I try to stay focused on that it. You don't want to miss it. Find out you run out of time and energy, and then when you're just about at that time of running out of time and energy, then you discover the it that you were supposed to be here in the first place, but it's too late to do it, whatever it was. Because you ran out of time and energy. Just an idea that I think everybody can kind of kick around in their minds when they get up in the morning, in the silence of the morning, when nobody's making any noise, nobody's saying anything, you're just alone with your own thoughts. What's that it that you're supposed to be? IT. It. Where is it?
Okay. And for me, I'm still learning and researching two words. If and when. If and when. What is if and what is when? And how do they work? Let's start this show off. This comes from King Negro, Mr. Fuller. He says this. Mr. Fuller, months ago when the white media claimed that there was an epidemic of random anti-Asian attacks by Negroes, I did a public records search and looked through databases to verify the existence of alleged attackers. I found, Mr. Fuller, that none of the alleged attackers even exist. The so-called anti-Asian attack videos were forgeries. The scenery and characters within those videos were digital or computer fictions. Realistic videos forgeries are known as deep fakes. Also, Mr. Fuller, I have been aware for a while that the white media has been promoting a lot of fake crime videos and mugshots on local and federal level. They are trying to portray Negroes as a roaming, dangerous menace to society. Negroes, Mexicans, and Central Americans have been victims of fake crime stories and fake courtroom videos. Anyways, people should not blindly accept without investigation crime stories which originate from white media and cops, because even though some stories are true, Mr. Fuller, a lot of them are fake. What say you about this tendency?
Well, I know in the system of white supremacy, deception is a requirement. People being fooled, that's an absolute requirement. Saying things that are not true is an absolute requirement in order to sustain the system of racism. So that goes without saying by saying it, you might say. That's just a given. That's structurally built into the system itself. That's an absolute requirement. We're in a war, so in a war you use all kinds of deceptions, all kinds of means of fooling people and leading people in the way that you want them to be led in order to do harm to those people, dominate and mistreat. That's what the system of racism is about, for the benefits that come with it to those who benefit from it. So that's within the realm of possibility. And since that comes under VGQ, I'm just saying, I don't know whether that's true or not, but I do know that the white supremacists use all kinds of devices down through the ages since its very beginning to deceive people, the people that they dominate and do harm to. So that comes under VGQ, but it also can be investigated. Many things are true, because if you are an arch deceiver, according to logic, you know how to mix truth with falsehood. In other words, if you are really an excellent deceiver, a person who is highly skilled in fooling people, you have to be able to mix truth with falsehood. That causes what? Greater confusion. Because if you're deceiving people, you're confusing people. But a person who is greatly skilled at deceiving people will say, for example, 10 things. 8 of those things will be absolutely true. When you double check them, triple check them, quadruple check them, you'll say, well, this fella, I thought the person was lying, but they were actually telling the truth. But they said 10 things. 8 of them were true, but 2 of them were not. And that's what an arch deceiver, a master deceiver, is good at. And those 2 things that are not true will mess up everything, all the rest of the 8. And so it's very difficult to tell what a deceiver is doing. That's why if they are master deceivers, you don't know the truth from the lie. And it just goes on and on and on and on. And if they're really skilled at it, you just have to do a lot of guessing. You don't really know for certain about anything, except one thing, that the person is a deceiver. Because if they tell one lie, even out of 1,000 truths, and that lie is what you call a real whopper, does real damage, well, and they did it deliberately, then you got big troubles.
Okay. I heard it once said that even a little lie, whatever that is still a lie.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to New York, and let's see if we can get Daryl in here. Okay, wait a minute, Daryl. Buffer you up here. Okay, Daryl, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning, and what is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
My question today, Mr. Fuller, is why is it important, according to the code, for victims of white supremacy to always have focus and clarity in all the 9 areas of activity?
Why it's important to have focus and clarity?
Yes.
Well, you have focus and clarity so you can have focus and clarity. So you're not confused. If you don't have focus and you don't have clarity, you're confused. And confused people are not very constructive to themselves or anybody else. So the more you can deconfuse yourself to start with, the better skilled you are at walking around on this planet without being confused about anything. You have definitely arrived at where you should be. Because getting rid of confusion is a full-time job. If you're very focused, you're very clear about what you're supposed to be doing and what you're not supposed to be doing, and what everybody else is supposed to be not doing or doing, that is focus and that is clarity. But you have a world of confusion right now. So trying to get that focus, that it that I talked about earlier. What is it? What is it that I am supposed to be doing, and why? And what ultimate purpose? And most of the world is confused. Because most of the world are made up of subject peoples to the masters of confusion, who spend full time, who burn midnight oil, as I use that cliche to say, to cause more and more confusion in order to subject people to their will. Because when you are a master of confusion, you will master all of the people who are confused by your confusion, who are not focused, who are not clear about anything. So they go around doing just about anything that seems to be the thing that you should be doing without even thinking about it. You become robotized, which is exactly what a master deceiver and a master harm doer wants his or her subjects to be.
All righty. Thank you, Darnell, for being a loyal listener. Thank you. All righty, let's go to Pennsylvania. And the man, here he is, the man, Stan the Man. Got you on, brother. Wait a minute, let me see. There you go, Stan the Man. You're on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning, and what is your question?
Yes, sir. Good morning, gentlemen. I just wanted to add quick, I appreciate what Mr. Fuller said about the deception. And, you know, they could say 10 things, 8 of them be true, 2 a lie. But I wanted to add to that, it's not just lying, but omission is not saying something or not giving information will cause confusion as well. But I wanted to ask a question. Mr. Fuller, are you familiar with a gentleman by the name of George Washington Williams, who's like a historian from the 1800s?
Never heard of him.
Okay, he was a Civil War soldier. He was a historian and sort of an adventurer, but he went over to the Belgian Congo in the 1800s, and he wrote an open letter to King Leopold, who basically lorded over the Congo. And it was like the question I always had in my mind was, how did the white supremacists do what they did, the steps that they took? And, you always say that you admit that you've been a servant to white supremacy, and I appreciate that about you. But in that letter, and I'm going to end it here, in that letter that he wrote, anyone can just go online and look at it. He talks about the things that the Belgian soldiers did to deceive the Africans and make them think that they were almost like superhuman, beyond human beings. And, from that, you get people who say, well, you can't outthink the white man, or the white man is superior, and you can see how that happened in that. And I would end it there and like to stay on the line.
All right, thank you there. Thank you there, Stan. Okay,
Oh,
Mr.
somehow I missed the question, though. How did they do that?
Yes.
Well, no, it was. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, go ahead.
I can hear you.
Okay, yes. I was just saying, it was just more of a comment, because you were saying that you've been a servant to white supremacy, and I just was saying that I appreciate that, because most people don't have an understanding of the role in which they play in white supremacy, but because you have black people that will say things like that to their children. You can't outthink the white man, and comments like that, and you wonder, how did that happen? Well, I just was saying that in that letter that George Washington Williams wrote, he explains in it what the white supremacists did in Africa to deceive the Africans that were there, to make them think that they were superhuman type people. That's all I was saying. I guess it was more along the lines of the question I had was just, had you ever heard of that man? And that was it.
Okay.
Oh, no, I never heard of that man, but I have heard of King Leopold and what that means in a place called Congo. So it means one of the most terrible things that ever happened on this planet, in the entire history of this planet, from what I have heard and read about, the little bit that has come to my attention over the years, that during that time of King Leopold of Belgium, the atrocities would make Adolf Hitler look like a Sunday school teacher.
Yes, I heard that, or in fact, I read that. I think it was 15 million Congolese people that he slaughtered, maimed, or cut
no
up.
Telling from what I've heard. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. I mean, that history, I think, will never be told. Well, from the little bit that I have picked up, they say the tragedies, there's no way to record it. It goes beyond comprehension. It would match anything that's ever happened in the history of the universe, of the worst type of events on a daily basis, on a minute-by-minute basis.
I think that I know the answer to this question I'm going to ask you, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there a reason why, Mr. Fuller, that you heard about other atrocities that other so-called nationalities have committed, but for some reason, why was this one omitted from, quote-unquote, the history books, in your opinion?
Well, it's the same reason that a lot of things. The history of racism will never be fully told, in my opinion, according to logic. It's no way for it to be told, because there so many events happening on a minute-by-minute basis. I'm talking about a minute-by-minute basis, not just an occasional event like 9/11 or something like that. No, I'm talking about every day, all over the planet. When you start talking about the history of white supremacy, it will never be told.
Yes, sir.
You couldn't write a book and put in add up all of the incidents, because the incidents are just coming so fast. I mean, every 2 seconds, I mean, just terrible things happening all over the planet since the beginning of the system of white supremacy, from the perceptions that I have, from the little bit of what I've been able to read in history books and to hear about and to bear witness to. And it's just no way for it to be told, because there's no way for it to be known.
Okay. All righty. Let's do this here. Let's see, because I had a question up here. Okay, from the Gmails. Okay. This comes from Redeemed, Mr. Fuller. Says this, good morning, Mr. Fuller. This is Deshaun from Southeast D.C. In the system of racism, white supremacy, has there ever in your lifetime been a period of time where blacks were, quote, united, end of quote, amongst each other? If so, why/how did we deviate from that?
Never been united. That's why we're in the shape we're in now. We didn't deviate from it. And as far as everything that I've been able to learn, once the system of white supremacy was in place, the unity was gone. It's never come back. I mean, there have been little blips on the radar where people have tried to, but trying ain't getting it. That's why you still have a solid thing, the most powerful religious system and political system ever conceived in the minds of people in capital letters is called the system of white supremacy. There's never been any government in the history of the universe among people that is proven to be more powerful than the system of white supremacy. All other so-called governments, quote unquote, are not even a blip on the radar in comparison to the power of the system of white supremacy. All other governmental concepts no way compare with the concept of racism in the form of the system of white supremacy in recorded history. Now, pre-recorded history, well, it's pre-recorded, non-recorded rather, non-history as far as recording of it is concerned, people keeping a record of it and passing it down through the ages. Now, I don't know about that. We can't speak of that. All kinds of things may have happened that was different. But since the beginning of white supremacy, all the little uprisings and the people trying to get together and do this and do that, and black people going into business, as we say, and Black Wall Street, all like that, it's almost like a joke compared to what? Compared to the awesome power of the entire system worldwide of this thing called racism and or white supremacy. The system of white supremacy. Systemic racism. It's real. It's not imaginary. That's why when you say systemic racism, which some people have started saying for the first time, it sets off waves right quick. From what I understand, and I saw a few TV depictions of it in this past year, because it's a use of that term, systemic racism. See, people have been talking about racism like forever, but I've been saying the system of white supremacy explicitly. But
yes,
nobody paid any attention. You know, but when somebody just starts saying, well, I'm not going to call it the system of white supremacy, I'll just call it systemic racism. And whomever started that, and they say that some black lady started it, using that term, just two letters, just two words, rather. Two words, systemic racism. And start talking about, let's just discuss it in the schools. Is racism a system? Is it not something you just run into every now and then? But is it a system? And once whomever starts saying that, said it, from what I've seen on television and reading some newspaper articles, it set off a firestorm.
Okay.
Why? Because it's hitting that nerve. It is hitting that nerve. Yes, sir.
Okay. Hold that thought, Mr. Fuller. We have to take a break. The music is starting there. Okay, just hold it. We'll come right back to that. Right back to systemic racism. Okay, you are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and we thank you for your listenership. To get in contact with the show, just simply call 516-453-9921. And be sure that when you do, that you, if you have a comment, you press the number 1 button. And please, ma'am, please, sir, give the call screener your name. And when you make your statement or you have a question, I'm asking, please, ma'am, please, sir, please be brief so that we can get as many people on as possible. Chat room is open, so you can go in there, and they are having a lively discussion in the chat room, and you can be a participant in there. I see where Produce 21 has joined the conversation along with Invisible Negro, but there are many in the chat room. You might want to get in on the conversation. And you can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com, and that will also go in rotation. In about 15 minutes or less, Mr. Fuller will discuss his book, all the materials that you can get at producejustice.com, and maybe any information that he may have on his appearance on the Carl Nelson show. We'll ask him about that also. So you have all the information you need up until right now, so let's go. Okay, Mr. Fuller, that was very interesting. Let's go right back into the systemic racism. Go ahead, finish that there. That was great.
Well, that's basically it. And I call it the system of white supremacy, and I started putting it in capital letters some years ago, way back in the 1970s. But, you know, many black people said, "Oh no, he's giving white folks too much power." Well, I mean, I've heard about that guy. He just, you know, he's talking about, you know, like they got all this power, but they ain't got no power. They just walk around this showboating and whatnot. I mean, you know, you're going to do what you're going to do. I mean, they ain't paying no attention to you. I mean, but I kept saying it, but nobody was paying attention. Now it looks like a few people, just in the last few years, that begin to pay attention and saying, people like him, are they saying that my whole life has been controlled by somebody else, and I'm not even aware of it, that I'm like a robot? And the answer is yes, if you want the truth. Stop and think about what you do, how you think, what your ambitions are, what you look forward to doing, all your, you know, your holidays and everything. I mean, you know, what you celebrate, your method of doing everything, and the way you go about doing it in every area of activity if you're black. Economics. What's your economic system? Who's in control of it? Are you? Your educational system, if you say that you are looking for an education, who credentializes you? That you're so proud of your credentials, your credibility. When you get a piece of paper in your hand with a signature on it, where does it come from? That says you are now educated if you're black. The average black person doesn't even ask these questions. They just go around saying, I'm achieving this, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. This is my own thing. I'm a gangster. You know, I participate in drive-by shootings. That's my own thing. Oh, did you invent that? Are you sure that that's your own thing? Do you have any idea what is your own thing? In all the areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, that horn that you blow, that guitar that you play, those acoustics, I mean, in that your home basement studio that you're so proud of. Wait a minute. Did you invent all of this? Did you come up with it? Did you come up with these arranged sounds? Sound is available to everybody in the universe. But now the kind of sounds that you make, even the curse words that you use, did you invent those? Did you invent those? Have you ever thought about that you're so proud of? I mean, that you can go down, record it and call people all these different kind of names. Did you make up those names? Where did they really come from? Your mind is swamped with the system of white supremacy, and you're not even aware of it. You don't have a mind of your own because you were born in a prison, and you have been conforming to prison rules ever since because there are no other rules that we've been exposed to. I'm talking through the entire non-white world now.
Okay. You said, and have said this in almost on every program, you say that the answer to any problems is to ask questions. And one of the things that's going on in the chat room, and I think Rita 888 said, or says, let me see, Rita, if I can get you. I guess it went by. It was about questions. Can you ask too many questions, or is there a number of, or how many is too many? How many in number frame is too many questions?
According to the code, there are never too many questions until all problems are solved. And that all problems are solved in a manner that produces what? Constructive results. As long as you're not producing constructive results, this entire world is in agony. Every move that a person makes, universal man and universal woman, which is, I talk about in the textbook for victims of racism, that should be the ultimate goal for everybody on the planet, white, non-white, male, female, whatever, to be a universal man and a universal woman, or a universal woman, rather. Universal man, universal woman, meaning what? Every move that he makes, every move that she makes, produces what? Constructive results. Everything that you say to someone is going to produce a constructive result. And they say, well, that sounds very rigidized. That sounds like turning everybody into a robot. No, it's making everybody this quality of person that they should be. And it's enjoyable. It sounds like it's restrictive, but actually it's what everybody says they'd love to have. Be liberated. Be free. It's nothing, that makes a person feel exhilarated. You're talking about being on a narcotics high. Better than narcotics, rather. This is no narcotic. If everything that you do produces constructive results, hey, how can you improve on something that can't be improved on? It doesn't get any better than that. And you're talking about fun. If everybody just walked around producing constructive results in everything that they did, you're talking about deliriously. Everybody just drunk with fun. That's all fun. There's an old song that we used to sing. I used to sing it, because, everybody else was singing it in elementary school. Some think the world is made for fun and frolic, and so do I. Tra la 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 la. Tra la 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 lee. Some think the world is made for fun and frolic, and so do I. But see, having fun doing what? A drive-by shooting? That's fun to a whole lot of people, including hordes of black people under the system of white supremacy, because the system of white supremacy is about worshiping death. We all become death worshipers. Turn on your television and what you see. Murder mysteries. Endless. All the money that they spend, they could be providing food for people. Shouldn't be publishing books about a murder mystery and glorifying them. But if you're a murder mystery writer, you become famous. You write a book on how to grow something, nobody pays any attention to you.
Yes, sir. Okay, so the answer to Rita's question, and I want to get it straight here, she said how many questions are considered too many and ask for a specific number. Okay, that was what she said, and she was responding to a chat in the chat room. So I wanted to get that right, Rita, 888. Thank you, Emery Lumumba. He's in the house. And my brother from Madagascar, Mada VGQ, is there. Thank you for being in the house. Let's go to and get some holler from the dollar. Dollar Bill, we are gotcha. All right, Dollar Bill, good morning.
Good morning. Hold on one second. Just fix my phone. Good morning, gentlemen. Hello, Mr. Fuller. Hello, Mr. Bobby. How are you?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good. That was really, Mr. Fuller, that was awesome what you just said about this system and just really how it's working. I wanted to go into something today. Just want to do a VGQ, and then I can ask my question. So my VGQ today was that, I don't know if you heard, Mr. Fuller, but they spent $300 million a day on the war in Afghanistan. $300 million a day for 20 years. I'm just saying. I mean, you say that 3 times, it makes me so upset. So I just wanted to say that because I think that we should now be trying to get some money for our $300 a day that we've been spending in our tax dollars. So that's my VGQ. The thing I wanted to talk to you today about is love. And in your the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept, codified word guide, you define, or you say that love, that we shouldn't use this word. Love, use it with caution. And you say do not use this word to describe any condition that now exists between the people of the known universe. Instead, use terms like affection, affectionate, caring, concerned, considerate, cooperative, helpful, supportive, etc., to apply to speech and action between persons, creatures, and or things that produce a constructive result. Do not use the word love to apply to such speech or action. When others use the word love, ask for a detailed explanation that you can easily understand. And when people say that they love someone or that someone loves them, it is correct to ask those people to explain exactly and in detail what they mean. And then you say, ask questions. So my question to you today, Mr. Fuller, I lost my aunt last week, and my aunt's name is the same as my mother. Now, when they told me my aunt had passed, I was like, oh, my aunt, blah, blah, blah. And I felt, I've always said, well, I don't believe in love. I'm trying to stay with the code and feel that way about it. But then when the message came out for the memorial, it said the name, which is my mother's name as well. And I went through kind of like a very depressed mode when I thought it was my mother who had passed. So I'm asking you about love. What is it, when you say this about love, could you just explain to us about, are we supposed to be specifically not really dealing with love in our life, or or is that, it can, I mean, how should we really feel about this word love? I mean, I know it's just a word, but can we use the word to express our love for, like, a mother, a child's love, a parent's love, and those things? Thank you. And I'll stay on, Mr. Bobby.
According to what I've written, according to the code, the word love, the compensatory definition, is the same as the word justice. But love doesn't exist because justice doesn't exist in a system of white supremacy, because it can't. The system of white supremacy erases the ability to love simply because it erases justice. It prevents justice from happening. Now, what is justice? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Now, you might say, well, I love my aunt, but she passed away, and that's, and that's when I realized how much I really did love her, and I miss her. These are emotions that, according to logic, they are compassion, caring. These are caring emotions. But love includes caring. But you cared as much as you possibly could, or you should have, while she was here, and even if she's gone, and you didn't care before then, if you care now, that's still caring. But see, we kick that word around, that love. The word love has just been the reason I put it a compensatory definition in the book and made it synonymous with justice, is because the word love has just been used all kinds of ways and all kinds of circumstances that make no sense at all. The word has become so cheap. Like Valentine's Day, you have a thing called Cupid, a little white baby, doing what? Here you got love and violence mixed up in the same thing. You'll send out a card with a picture of a little white baby with a loincloth. And what's the other ornament? A bow and arrow. And the little white baby fires that arrow through a what? A heart. And that's real cute on that Valentine's Day card. An arrow going through a heart, that's like a drive-by shooting. But they call it love. See, under the system of white supremacy, everything is distorted. Everything, but made to look appealing. And we're brainwashed into this, say, I love her, Your Honor, you don't understand, Your Honor. I killed her because I loved her. Well, what do you do with people that you hate? It doesn't make sense, the way we just kick that word around. So the word almost just shouldn't even be used. So I made it synonymous with justice. And I say that you cannot have love without justice. And what is justice? Guaranteeing that nobody's mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. And everything else is just caring. And you should care about justice and you should care about people, period. Not just because someone is kin to me. Why is it that we care about somebody that's kin to us? What do you mean by kin? But we don't care about, I look in the obituaries quite often myself, looking for myself sometimes, which won't be long from now. I'll be in there, all right. Whether I'm in there or not, I'll still be in there if I'm gone. But in the obituaries, you look in the obituary every day, or you turn the newspaper every day, you see 8 people killed in a car wreck. You know. Now, someone is really crying about that, but you didn't cry. Why? You say, well, I didn't know him. Listen at that. You didn't cry because you didn't know him. But if you had known him and cared about him on a personal level, then that's the difference. Is that the difference? And if most people are asked that question, they will say, yeah. I mean, yeah, a lot of people died. That bridge fell down. I mean, 800 people were on that bridge when it fell. They're gone. They all perished. They all were swept down the river when the bridge washed out, and they were on it. That was the last place they could go. And it collapsed, and they all got caught in that stream. And when they found all those bodies, 800 of them, and then you say, well, that's awful. Man, that's terrible. I'm glad I wasn't on that bridge. And then you turn the page, and what else is new? But if your aunt had been on that bridge, then you really feel that pain, or your sister, or your mother. That's the way it is. But you didn't feel that way about the other people. Somebody died just a few minutes ago, somewhere, and you heard about it a few minutes ago. But you talking about Ralph? Ralph died? Say, no, not the Ralph that you know. It was another Ralph. You don't know him. Oh, okay. I thought you said Ralph died, man. You know, that stunned me. I mean, you hit me hard. I mean, but you talking about Ralph Fennell. Yeah, I heard. He worked around the office somewhere, but I don't know him. You know, yeah, but he died. Well, that's bad, man. You know.
Okay. Thank you, Dollar Bill. Mr. Fuller, I got to get this in. You got to talk about your book. We only have a few more minutes left in this particular hour, so we got to go right to your book. So go ahead and speak to your book within the remaining moments that we have in this hour.
All the things we're talking about now, I mean, I try to encapsulate in the book. I don't have all these illustrations and all like that, but I'm talking about is what the world is about right now in the year 2021. And it's about the biggest problem, in my opinion. And that's what I put into the book. It's strictly my opinion and suggestions about what to do about it. That the world is full of problems, but you always try to start with the biggest problem, because if you get the biggest problem, it's easier to deal with the smaller problems. That's why I wrote the book. I came to the conclusion that the biggest problem is a thing called racism. And I concluded, I don't know whether it's true or false, but you can make your own decision about that. The biggest problem is the system of white supremacy. And I say no other major problem can be solved without solving that problem. And I sometimes use an expression just to make the point. I say, you solve the problem of racism and all the other problems in the world you can take care of on your lunch hour. That's how I compare it. Solve the race problem and all the other problems in the world you can solve on your lunch hour. It'll be just that easy. Everything will be much easier because the race problem is the biggest problem. And it makes all the other problems balloon into huge problems. Every last one of them. All the arguments about capitalism and communism and all that. The white supremacists are the greatest capitalists, communists, socialists, royalists that the world has ever seen. They're all of them. So if you got any controversy in any of those, what you call major isms, including all the religious squabbles, the strongest religion, the strongest political system is the system of white supremacy. So I've written a book about what the individual victim of it can do and say on a daily basis, because I came to the conclusion that you can't organize against racism. Black people have been trying that forever. How are you going to organize in a prison? So you unify, and you unify by doing what? Around a concept that is superior, quote unquote, or presumably will make it that, to the concept of racism. And that's the concept of justice. But figure out what to do that will produce the most constructive results. That's the procedure on a daily basis. If each individual, this is what the books are about, the word guide and the basic book. If each individual, every move that you make, you try to produce a constructive result. I'm talking about the individual victims of racism now. Racism will be out of business. That's the theory. You unify around a code that will produce that result, not a person. You start putting your faith in people, you've already made a huge mistake already, because people make mistakes, every last one of them. You don't have a person who is mistake-proof that is among the people on this planet now. Don't exist. When you start putting your faith in some so-called leader that knows everything about everything, got the answer to every question, don't make no mistakes, no, that's not going to happen. So you put your faith in what came with the universe. And that's the laws of the universe, cause and effect. Fire will burn, water's wet. So that's what the books are about. Helping to eliminate racism and then building a world of justice and correctness and peace in its place on an individual basis each and every day. You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. Producejustice.com. What to say and what to do. Because everything is about doing and saying each and every day. The individual person. What you do and what you say. That's what changes the world.
Okay, and finally, we have about 30-something seconds here.
Producejustice.com.
Yes, sir. Do you have any information on your next appearance on the Carl Nelson Show on WOL out of Washington, D.C.?
No, but this is a brand new month, so it might happen anytime this month. Usually I do one show per month.
And you will put that on ProduceJustice.com?
I will put it on ProduceJustice.com. It'll appear there.
Okay.
Hopefully within at least a week before I go on the air for that 2-hour show.
Okay. All righty.
Carl Nelson Show, WOL.
Okay. WOL, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, for that. And thank you, callers and listeners, for listening to the first hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We really appreciate the fact that you have taken time out of your day to listen to the show, make comments, chat rooms, and Gmails. Thank you. Now, if you have to go, okay, have a good week, and hopefully we'll see you next week. But we have another hour to go right here on the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., which will commence in about 10 seconds. Yes, I have a clock here that's counting down for me. In about 10 seconds. So stay tuned for the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. All righty. Welcome back to the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And we appreciate that you have taken time out of your day to be with us. Now, if you want to get in contact with this show, just simply call 516-453-9921 and give your name to the call screener. Now, I'm going to ask again, and I'm going to emphasize, please, ma'am, please, sir, please, 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 be brief in whatever you're going to ask Mr. Fuller so that he can answer your question. As you can see, he will use a lot of analogies, which does take time to make sure that your question is answered thoroughly. So please, ma'am, please, sir, please just ask your question real quickly so that Mr. Fuller can answer that. In the same way with your VGQ, just go ahead and say it, but make that quick also. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, Bobby, @gmail.com. Occasionally I will read one or two if I can get to it. And I'm going to tell you right now, the chat room is open, and this is one of the best chats I've ever seen. These people are blowing up, all of them. All of them are just blowing up in there. You should, if you can, go in there and look at the intelligent conversations that are happening in the chat room. You can learn something there. In fact, we all are still learning. Okay, let's do this here. Let me get my phone up here. Technology. Okay, Mr. Fuller, this comes from Rachel. She says this. This is from the Gmail. She said, Mr. Fuller, you mentioned that we are, quote, drowning, end of quote, in racism. My question, if this is a true statement, does it mean that everything we do is for or against racism? Thank you for your answer.
So far, we've done nothing but support racism, simply because racism is in place. But being born in a prison, you're always serving the prison masters. And the system of white supremacy is a world prison for people who have color in their skin. Their skin color is their prison uniform. So every white person is taught. You see a person with color in his or her skin, that's a person who is born to be dominated and mistreated. In order to do what? In order to gain what? What everybody wants, every creature, every bird, every alligator, every bear, every insect wants what? 3 things: fun, glory, and material comfort. A bee flying around a flower. A hummingbird is having fun. They're looking for fun. Squirrels chasing each other. They're doing that for fun. They're not trying to harm each other. You've seen squirrels. I've seen them in the woods. One chasing behind the other, running around the tree and running in a circle, going up the tree and one right behind another, and the one who is chasing the one in front of them. And they learn how to avoid danger by doing that, by rehearsing that little activity, I think. But they're having fun doing it. So everybody wants fun. People who have been bottled up by COVID-19, I understand. They say they're going crazy, going stir crazy, what they call it, when you talk about a prison, making the prison analogy. I'm tired of being locked down. I'm wearing a mask and whatnot. I want to get out. I want to have fun. So the white supremacists, first thing you want, if you're reasonably healthy, enough to function without a lot of pain. And the next thing is glory. You want to be well thought of by someone. Pay attention to me. Babies come into the world seeking attention. We never lose that. We want somebody to pay us some attention. That's why Put it on an earring or get a new hairdo or ask for a tattoo. You want somebody to pay attention. Now, look, I got a tattoo. You're 2 blocks away, but stop what you're doing, come down there and look at my tattoo. Well, what's the tattoo for? For you to look at. Why do you think I got it? It ain't just for me to look at, it's for you to see it. I got it on my shoulder. I can't even see it. But I want you to see it. Why do you want me to see it? Well, give me some kind of attention. I ain't getting enough attention. That's glory. Fun. Glory. And what's the third thing? Material comfort. We don't like to feel pain. None of us do. Pain is no fun. Erasing number 1. And glory don't mean nothing when you're lying on that hospital bed fighting COVID-19. You ain't thinking about no glory. But you do want people to pay you enough attention to get you out from under that ventilator and that breathing apparatus and all like that so that you can breathe normally. But what I understand, it takes your breath away, COVID-19. That it's an awful thing that nobody should ever want to live through or die because of it. But what am I talking about? The 3 things that all creatures want. Fun, glory, and material comfort. We want to sit in the easy chair, not the chair that's got 3 legs and you keep having to balance yourself while you're sitting there operating your computer. That's not comfortable. That's very uncomfortable. So you want a chair that you can sit up, it doesn't hurt your back, it's real comfortable, most comfortable chair you ever sat in. We like that. That's material. A chair is material. So that's material comfort. You even have a thing called comfort food. Most of it is junk. But, it's a drug. Junk food is like drugs. It gives you a temporary high, but it doesn't give you nutrition. In the system of white supremacy, you got plenty of it. Junk food. That's what they call it. They call it that. Junk food. Because it's junk. Tastes good, but it's junk. It's killing your body. So, in answer to your question, I think, and I may have deviated, and I'm sure I did. I usually do. But that's what it's all about. In the system of white supremacy, we're born in it. And they set all the standards about what people should be doing and not be doing. And it produces what? Lots of material things. I don't think anybody can deny in all of history, the system of white supremacy produces material things that are astonishing. It is very efficient when it produces material things and the worship of material things. We just like to gather up as many as we possibly can. Material things, which the code says, start unloading. For one thing, you got to move all that stuff. The white supremacists are in the process now of making black people all over the world having to move from one place to another. We're becoming permanent nomads. You can't stay where you are. You might think you can, but they're going to bring about a circumstance that's going to drive you out of that place.
Is that racial relocation?
Racial dislocation.
A dislocation.
That's described in the textbook.
Okay.
They got about 6 strategies that they're using now worldwide, and they're all being very successful at it. And racial dislocation is one big one. So travel light. It might sound like I'm digressing now. I hope I'm not. But This is what the textbook for victims of white supremacy you get by going to Produce Justice is about.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go on to Pittsburgh, where Great King, Black State, is now on the air. You are there, my brother. What is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Okay. Hello, gentlemen. I'll try to do the VQC thing. So I wrote a book. It's called Black State of America by RSLDJ. And it lays out a plan, which I called a reverse migration in a book. But essentially, if we look at the state of Delaware, where black people are just under 30% of the population, if we can add enough population to become the black majority within the state of Delaware, as an example, we could actually take over the state of Delaware through our vote, through the power of the black vote. So these would be black people who are intentional and have a purpose in order to take over the entire state system. And that model could be repeated over and over again, essentially in 8 or more states along the south and eastern coast of the United States, where we already have high population. So my question is, listening to you, it sounds like, because the one quote that I remember is, the system is a prison. And so in order to assert ourselves, we have to become the wardens of these prisons, which each state essentially is an individual prison in a collection of a union of states or a union of prisons. So if we can become these black majorities within these states, we can effectively control our existence within those states. And I'd just like to get your opinion of that.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Fuller?
Well, let's think in this vein. You have a place called South Africa. Had a black president that came out of what you might call a prison, Mr. Nelson Mandela, who became world-renowned during the short period that he was out of that greater confinement, as the code book calls it. We're already confined, but that's greater confinement when they put you in a smaller cell. But the whole world is the prison itself. So when we go into what we call those little boxes called prisons, that's just greater confinement. So let's think in this vein. Just a thought, considering everything that you just said. There are places all over the world where black people are in, quote, unquote, the majority. There's a few white people walking around looking like they're just milling around as tourists and all like that. And you say, well, who's in charge here? And you look and you go and see. I mean, the police chief, all of the teachers, for the most part, except those who just came here volunteering through some religion or something like that, who are white, and the school boards, all black, and the people who are in charge of the railroads, all black, people who are in charge of bridge building and road building, all black. Might even have what you call a black king. I mean, a monarchy who is sitting on a throne practically and looked up to by everybody. We have a king. We have a black king here. We have black royalty. And here's what the code says about that in the system of white supremacy. What has that meant so far? Now, every one of these people all over the world say, we have our independence. But do you? You got 9 areas of activity, starting in alphabetical order: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Now, who are the masters of these places? See, I'm talking about thinking on a grander level when you think about the world being a prison for black people. You can become a king in a cell. You can become king of the cell block. Many people who have been in various greater confinement situations, what we call prisons, they say, oh, yeah, I was the king of the cell block, man, you know. And you got people in the northwestern hemisphere who say, hey, man, I control this area. This is my area. My gang controls this area, man. Hey, we got it sold up. I mean, you know, everybody knows us. When they see our gang signs, our gang colors, they know not to mess with us. Yeah, they. Meaning whom? Meaning other prisoners of war. People that look like yourself. But that black neighborhood that you're supposed to be the big gangster of, or that country that you call your country because you're the king of it, you're the black king, you better be able to be a whale of a diplomat when what? A few white people show up. Because what? Those ships out there in that harbor have got to sail on their seas, and they make all the rules. Those airplanes that you fixing to fly, that they taught you how, and that they control through the air. In other words, they know where you are and where you're flying. You got to get permission to go anywhere from them, directly or indirectly, on their planet. See, so it comes down to just being bunched up in one place, because that's all it comes down to. And saying that you're king of the cell block. And this is just a thought. Has that worked in other places throughout the world where people say they have not just a so-called state, they have a whole country? I mean, it goes on and on and on. When you're talking about land, when you're talking about people, when you're talking about titles and positions, you got them. But when it comes to power, in the system of white supremacy, there's only one boss, one power, and it's always white. That's what white supremacy means. Having a black Wall Street means absolutely nothing when it comes to who has more power than Black Wall Street. Well, whomever has more power than Black Wall Street has all the power. That's what power means. You say, yeah, but this is a Black Wall Street unlike we've had back in the old days. I mean, this Black Wall Street out here in Fresno, California, man, we was going to make it a showcase. We was going to make it a world showcase. We was going to make it the top, you know. And when you go there, man, you're going to see a real Wall Street. It's a rival of Wall Street in New York. I mean, it makes New York look like it ain't nothing, that Wall Street they got in New York. That new Black Wall Street we got in Fresno, California, man, have you been to it? Man, all them banks, all of them that, all of them this, and all of them, well, you got all kind of Black Wall Streets in Nigeria. already. But the white supremacists say, you don't move an aircraft or a ship without my permission, or you will hear from me in about 5 minutes, and you will know what real power is, and you know it from your history here in Nigeria, or here in the Ivory Coast, or here in Haiti. All black here in Haiti. But you know who boss is. You know who you run to in a crisis. There ain't but one place to run to. Which way did the white folks go? I said that on this program over and over again. When it comes down, at the beginning and the end of each day, most people who have color in their skin wake up in the morning and go to bed at night saying, which way did the white folks go? Because wherever they are, things are always better.
All righty. Let's go to Willie in Charlotte. Willie, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. How are you gentlemen doing?
Still learning.
Good,
sir. I wanted to talk about just a quick VGQ and a question, and I want to talk about mental health. And I noticed that, part of the conversation was on Dr. Welsing last week. And there is I noticed that whether it's depression, alcoholism, meth addiction, self-hatred, we killing each other, I think Bobby Wright called it menticide. And I noticed that there are not a lot of psychiatrists, black or otherwise, who really have the two pieces of the puzzle together. They have their profession, which is to help heal minds, and then the other part, which is the white supremacy part, and they are far and few between. I wonder if you guys had ever heard of, Dr. Welsing was obviously very treasured in helping us kind of with that part of it, but I wonder if you guys there's a woman, Indian woman, whose name is Aruna Kilanani, and she's a psychiatrist out of Yale Medical, and she is working in white supremacy. I wonder if you had heard of her.
Which one, Dr. Wilson or the Indian woman?
The Indian woman.
I have never heard of her at all. But
okay.
What are you saying about her?
Well, my thing is basically we're all struggling with these personal issues which essentially consume our lives. If it's depression, if it's alcoholism or whatever, I think there's a whole thing called attribution theory. What do you attribute that to? And I think most of us do not attribute it to white supremacy, have a difficult time doing that. And the talented mental health professional, Amos Wilson is one, psychologist and psychiatrist, help us make that connection. So my question is, Mr. Fuller, when you were working with Dr. Welsing or in your time subsequent to that, most of us really are struggling with these personal issues and then we die, right? So we never really ever focus on white supremacy because these personal issues consume us. We never make that connection. And I was wondering if you had a suggestion of basically how we better make that connection of our personal issues, whatever they are. It could be irritability, where we destroy our families. And Dr. Welsing said that we don't have families; we have survival units. But I wonder if you had any insight about how to draw those two connections so that we're pulling ourselves out of our personal issues. And I'm one who, as many of us, who have been struggling with these issues and so forth, and want to do better in terms of making a contribution to getting rid of white supremacy. Do you have any insights or people you thought were instrumental in helping draw those connections better than others?
No, that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do with a program like this one. See, it's right there in front of you. I always call it the assignment. The assignment is to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. Nobody's ever done it. And Neely Fuller is trying to come up with a formula for doing it, like everybody should be doing. And you don't separate personal from the business, so because it's all a part of the same thing. See, and so if we straighten out our personal affairs so that we get what? A constructive result. These are the two words. That does a whole lot. In fact, that's the whole thing. Worldwide, if every black person adopts a code, which is what I said we need, in answer to your question, we need a code for everything that we do. We don't separate the world at large, whatever that means, from our personal affairs. It's all a part of the same fabric. We got to do both simultaneously. Take care of your personal affairs, and when you take care of your personal affairs so that you get constructive results, you are taking care of the world problems. You are eliminating racism, because racists are against black people doing anything that produces constructive results. That's why a whole lot of what we call black culture has got to be thrown in the garbage can. Lots of it. But we worship it, our habits. I mean, we brag about soul food. It's soul food, all right. I mean, because it will turn you into a soul rather than a body, because it's devastating your body. It's based on slave recipes. And so they fed the slaves the worst of what they could have, chitlins. That's the core of soul food. But I think most black people now, at least in the northwestern hemisphere, we don't worship chitlins like they did when I came up. Hog guts. That's not healthy. It's proven not to be healthy. Even white people, that ate it. They say, well, I'd rather have pork chops, which is high on the hog. That's an expression they use. I'd rather have pork chops than have chitlins. We give the chitlins to the Negro out there in the field. He'll eat anything, because we don't allow them to eat much of anything anyway, even the food that they're growing for us. We watch them, make sure that we get the best of the chicken, and they get what's left. After we get through eating, they come and pick up the bones and scraps and whatnot and try to feed their little offspring, the little crumb snatchers, we call them. Chicken
Huh. Oh, okay. High on the hog. Got to take a station break. Thank you for your call there. You're listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. And if you would like to get in contact with the show, you know the number to call, but it is 516-453-9921. You press the number 1 button, and you can and will be heard. Just ask your question. I'm trying to emphasize quickly, but I guess that's going out the window today. But anyway, it is what it is. As Rita 888 has said, it is what it is. But that's how you can get in contact with the show. You can also get into the chat room, and they are blowing up massively in there. Just outstanding what they are chatting about in there. Man. And you can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B, at Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y. Let me repeat that, 7, Mr. Bobby, at gmail.com, yeah. Yeah, you can do that, and put your question in there, and we'll go from there. All the material that is being discussed today, or what Mr. Fuller is discussing, I should say, can be found in his book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. Some people call it the Code. Here's the important thing. Go to produce producejustice.com. That is producejustice.com, and you can order the book right there, get the latest information that he has to offer. If he is going to be on the Carl Nelson show, he said earlier in the program that when he finds out that information is up there, and also other podcasts that we have done is also on there. They're also on there. So you can go back and review, listen to it all week long if you want to, but they are there. But that's at producejustice.com, producejustice.com, and you'll be more than glad that you did. Okay, in the remaining 28 minutes, I thought I had Corey up here. Corey, I can't find you. Wait a minute. Let me see here. I thought I had you here, Corey. Not there. Oh, yeah, there we go. Corey, guess what? You're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your
good morning, Mr.
question?
Yeah, quick question here, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. Good morning. I want to ask a quick question. I got two really quick questions. First one is, you was talking about love earlier in the show. I heard a white scientist, I think he was a white scientist that guys years ago called, named Jack Fresco. He called love, he scientifically defined love as extensionality. And he said that he meant by that, for example, your arm raises some water to your face to drink it, it takes care of you. So, I mean, a pimp can say to a prostitute, I love you, but does it mean anything? Or a guy can say to a girl, I love you, or vice versa, and they could be trying to get something out of that person. But love is basically an action. So would Mr. Fuller agree with that love can be defined as essentiality?
Was that a question?
Yes, Mr. Fuller, that was a question. Would you define love also as extensionality in the compensatory code?
As a what?
As extensionality.
Extensionality?
Yes, sir.
What's an extensionality?
Where it's one person is extensional to another. They take care of the other person. For example, if you have a care unit member that's hurt, you take care of them and nurse them back to health. You're extensional to that person. You're not just saying the word love, which doesn't mean anything if it's said without action.
For some reason, and that's my fault, I'm not really understanding the question.
Corey, that's okay. We can get back with that because he needs time to find out what that means. What is your second question, though, while we're doing that?
My second question is, the person was talking about voting. I'm dealing with, in the military, I'm dealing with racism on the job, and I'm going to read the labor part of the post. But would Mr. Fuller state that voting is futile? I'm a mild conspiracy theorist. I think there's like a European Illuminati trying to run the world, running white supremacy and keeping it in place, or Freemasonry or whatever it is. But would Mr. Fuller agree that voting in the context of this current white supreme world is futile because you're voting for either one white supremacist or another, or a black white supremacist or whatever? I mean, even though Mr. Fuller defines white supremacy that you only have to be white to be white supremacist, I would strictly disagree that you can be any color and be white supremacist. You have to say that white people are supreme. But would he say that voting is futile in this current system, Mr. Fuller?
If I understand this question, is voting important? Is that what you're saying?
No, is it futile as in pointless? Like not important. Like it doesn't accomplish anything. Like pissing in the wind, sir. Like it doesn't accomplish nothing.
Oh, voting is important. I vote. Yes. Why? Because the same reason I go and ask for a job. So it's important to vote. Why? You might get a few more crumbs than you ordinarily would get. Think of yourself as being in prison. So anything that's going to improve your prison condition, if the warden gives you an opportunity to say that you can work in the movie Shawshank Redemption, the warden said, "Hey, Andy," and as a prisoner, He said, now, do you enjoy working in the machine shop? And he says, not particularly. He said, well, you know, you got the talents to be a banker, so maybe you can work in my office. So Andy said, yeah, I'm still in prison. I'm doing 2 life terms. So I'm going to spend 2 life terms working in the machine shop and or out there working on the prison farm, on the outside the walls where they grow food and whatnot. Or I got a choice. I can work in the warden's office. I mean, I'm a banker. That's my background, not a farmer or not a machinist. And so he jumped at the chance. He said, yeah, I'll take that job working in the warden's office, just shuffling papers and whatnot. As much, you know, working inside. The warden's office is comfortable. Why? Because the warden is in there. Like the slaves on the plantation. Yeah, you know, Amos is offered a job up there at the big house. Going to be working in the kitchen on the inside. And then you're going to do a little table waiting. You get more scraps of food. Get better quality food, too. Sometimes get top quality food. When master ain't looking, you get that choice piece of chicken. Why? Because he's the one that went out there and caught the chicken. So it's the same thing when it comes to voting. You just might get in a little better position to not only help yourself, see, once you get in the big house kitchen, all right, but you can, hey, Master had a big banquet last night. He left all this food back here. I mean, you know, because the banquet, people didn't eat as much as they thought they were going to eat. So we got all this leftover food. I'm taking this down to the shack, to the missus, and my children. I mean, you know, Master, I mean, he's drunk. He's from overnight. I mean, he always get drunk at these big parties. So he don't even know the food's here. He think it's all eaten by his guests. I'm taking this food down to the shacks. All right. Now he's not really stealing because the code says you don't steal. But you know, Master said, you know, hey, you can have the scraps. Well, those were the scraps. So Master ain't got no complaint about this, even if he was sober. See, it's like that. That's what voting is about for black people in the system of white supremacy. If I understand what the question was, should you vote? Yeah, if you're going to get something. If you ain't going to get nothing, it ain't going to change. I mean, you know, well, then you reconsider it. But most likely you'll get something. Somebody will get something that should have the something.
Oh, okay. Corey, before I let you go, in regard to the first question, was that word essentiality?
No, sir. It's extension, like extending your arm.
Oh, extend. Oh,
yes,
extend. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Extenuality. Okay. Because I was trying to look that up to see we can get an answer.
I never heard the word. That's an actual word, huh?
Yeah. How do you spell that, Rod? Do you know? You have that offhand there, Corey? Because I'm going to look that up myself.
No, sir. Because I lost a book that white scientist wrote. But it's let me see if I can find it on.
Well, that's okay.
Quick.
You know what? I'll research that. But that's good. I'll find out the answer to that and go ahead on. And if I have the moment, can relay that to Mr. Fuller. But thank you for your call. Appreciate it very much. Don't be a stranger. Yes, sir.
Have a good week.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
All righty. George in Macon County, Macon, Georgia. I got people down there. George, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning. Did I get you in? Or did
Mr. Fuller. Good morning.
Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yes. Good morning, guys. Yes. So I am from New York originally, and I'm visiting family down here in Macon, Georgia. And most recently this Sunday, I visited, for the first time I could say in my life, I visited a predominantly white church. And listening to Mr. Fuller and some of his clips on the topic of religion in the black church, I noted a few observations that I listed. First and foremost, the people there
the white people there, they don't really they dress ordinarily in regular clothes. Not so many people in their suits, and what we would call in the black church their Sunday's best. They dress. They don't really put much of a focus on fashion and how they dress at the church. Secondly, the praise and worship session of the service was much shorter than it is in black churches. The people who are there singing and playing the instruments, they don't really put as much emotion as the people in the black church do. I know that's a thing in the black church. The singing and dancing is really a big thing. Entertainment. I know a lot of black entertainers got their start in the black church, like Little Richard, who's from Macon. Also, they don't put much of a focus on collecting money every Sunday. The lead pastor there, he's not really as prominent as a black pastor is in the black church. I know that's really a big thing with black pastors. There's a focus on them as a leader. Also, yes, just the entertainment factor isn't really there. The sermons are very quick and to the point. It's not really long and drawn out, and one thing I also noted was they do talk about darkness and light, driving out the darkness and bringing in the light. So these are a few things that I noticed with the white church. I feel like their services are a lot more efficient, albeit that's the first time I ever visited a white church in my life, so I don't know about other white churches. But my question for Mr. Fuller, with that information in mind, have you ever visited a white church in your lifetime, and could you say that you share some of these observations in common?
Yes. Vaguely, it's a long time ago. I have been in those settings, and I've been knowing that. I think every black person knows that. That's why black people really don't want to go to what you call white churches. They say they ain't got no soul. I mean, they don't get down. They don't get with it. I mean, everything is so sterile. Well, in the system of white supremacy, everything is all business. Everything. The business of what? White supremacy. That's what the business is. Okay? So you're going to find, ain't going to be no nonsense. There ain't going to be no stuff that's going nowhere, just everybody getting high on emotions. Because when black people were allowed to start participating in church, everything is supposed to be about how you feel. Not thinking about solving problems. Ain't no way to solve them until you die. That'll be your problem, will be solved when you get to the other side. You ain't going to solve no problems here. But see, in the system of white supremacy, the white supremacist religion, it's not Christianity. It's not Judaism. It's not Islam or Hinduism or Confucianism or Buddhism. The system of white supremacy is a religion itself, no matter how it looks on the surface. So everything is designed to support white supremacy, including songs or whatever, sermons or whatever. It's designed to support white supremacy, everything, no matter what it looks like on the surface. And the so-called black church or black religion is just a weak reaction to the system of white supremacy. All of it. That's all it is, unfortunately. When you really look at it for what it really functions as. But every now and then, you find people like Martin Luther King and all like that say, no, we're going to deal with reality on a daily basis. And a lot of people oppose, a lot of black preachers who say, dealing with the things of the world, because this world is finished anyway. And that's what black people were taught. That's what I was taught in most of the black churches that I went to. Very little that was said had anything to do with what's going to happen Monday. This is Sunday. Monday is always going to be blue. It's going to always be that way, and ain't nothing going to change. And you can't change it. The whole world is evil, and it'll all be taken care of in the sweet by and by when we all meet in Hallelujah Square. But you got to be dead to do that. Okay? Now, that's what I was taught. You can't straighten out nothing here, no matter how hard you try. And when you look around, it seems that this is the case so far, according to evidence. According to the evidence, I can't argue against the black preachers who say that, because when I look at the evidence, it looks like what they're saying is true. But in answer to your question about why is that difference, the system of white supremacy is being taught everywhere in the system of white supremacy, and particularly in a white church. This is why white people don't like to come to black churches. You know, they don't want to listen to all that moaning and groaning and whatnot. They say, hey, we're going to roll. We take care of business, including you. You wouldn't even have a church, you Negroes, if it wasn't for us. You don't even know what church is. So, you know, you're second best when it comes to that, too. Your religion, your black religion is second best to white religion. Why? It ain't got no power, that's why. You can't feed nobody. You can't clothe nobody. All you black people who call yourself by all these different religions, least little thing happened. Only thing you got to say now is, which way did the white folks go? You got all these crosses hanging around your neck. Hey, I burn crosses.
All righty. Okay. John Houston, you are on. Are you there, John? Last call for John. Okay, John, you're not there. Okay. Let's go to the ATL. Randall. Randall, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Hey, Mr. Fuller, I just wanted to know, what is your best advice that you can give in terms of how to deal with code-switching black folks? They get around white folks, they call themselves people of color, and then when they get back around black folks, they refer to themselves as black. I find myself becoming less and less trusting of these types of black folks, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
You interact with all black people as if they are prisoners of war. So you expect all type of behavior from prisons. You know, people who have been in prison, you know, you have a prison behavior. So there's all types of little things that prisoners do. So you don't expect anything glorious or very little that's constructive to come out of any prisoner of war. You know, some prisoners are more talented than others and should be listened to, and they say things that might help you a little bit inside the prison that we're all in, but you don't criticize them. The code says you just listen to what they have to say, and the code says specifically, like when people ask me about something that some other black person said about race, racism, or counter-racism. That's why we need a code. Automatically, I say, well, the person said what they said. Say, yeah, but what do you think about what they said? Because I think it was stupid what they said. I mean, blah, 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 blah. No. The code serves a purpose. The purpose is to keep down conflict between these prisoners of war. You know, you have prison riots all the time. Who are the prisoners rioting against? Each other. one gang fighting against the other gang over there in the other cell block. Okay. And the warden looks down at them and yawns and say, ho hum. But they're all prisoners. I mean, that's how prisoners act. Finally, they get tired of fighting. Now, I'll go down there and knock their heads together and stop them from fighting. But at the end of the day, they'll still be in prison. They hadn't helped themselves at all. And a lot of them got their teeth knocked out. A couple of them got killed. A lot of them, in the infirmary. Well, business as usual. So black people, as prisoners of war, as prisoners of the system of white supremacy, shouldn't be in conflict with each other about anything. Why? Because it's not going to lead to any, what? Constructive results.
Constructive results, yeah. Okay.
Everything is about constructive results.
Here we go again. Yes, sir. All righty. All the material that Mr. Fuller has discussed and will continue to discuss can be found at the ProduceJustice.com website. The books, the materials, the other podcasts, all the information you need. Go to ProduceJustice.com. Special shout out to Dee Dee Carr. Thank you, Dee Dee, for your kind words. She said, Mr. Fuller, that she is really enjoying today's program. And on a sad note that has nothing to do with this program at all, I just want to say that I'm a little saddened by the death of Omar of The Wire. That has nothing to do with this program, but I happen to like his character. Okay, we got about 7 minutes, and we're going to Terrence. Terrence, very quickly, you're on with Mr. Fuller.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning,
Appreciate
sir.
what you're doing. So I'm trying to be in code and make this a slam dunk. I want to go back to a couple of past shows when Mr. Fuller asked the question, posed the question, who needs whom more? Who needs who more? Do white people need black people more, or do black people need white people more? And I've been thinking about that for weeks. I was cutting the grass, thinking about it. And what I came up with was, in the system, or the goal to be universal, man and woman, and to be in the universe, every piece of matter is connected. So in that sense, we both need each other. All people need each other. But in this system of white supremacy, which is racism, I thought about it, and I think that white supremacists need non-white people more than we need them, because they have to keep this most efficient, most powerful system going. And so they need the core element of that system to keep it going. But what they do need from us also is that we stay non-coded. We stay confused, violent. We give up the knowledge for things we don't research, or, they're really dependent on us giving away things like reading and finding out stuff for ourselves in return for all those baubles and promises of things that they'll give us in return if we just give up a code. And so I do believe that's why the code is important. The other thing I wanted to say is I kind of wanted to, not silliness, but I wanted to add some levity to it, because I think that the white supremacist code is there from birth at everything, even in babies' cribs. They have pictures of stuff, and Mr. Flew was talking about Cupid and how basic those premises and confusing things are in the very beginning. So I think that we should start doing code on all levels, children's stories, characters, put the code on the cereal box. Instead of having a tiger eating a whole bunch of sugar and saying it's great, maybe we have something that is coded that teaches our babies very early with images not to do certain things and to stay on code. And maybe Mr. Fuller can even write a children's book. And that's my comment.
All right. Thank you very much. Last call of the day going out to Colorado. Justice, can you get it in 2 minutes because that's about how much time we got left. You're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
2 minutes. Greetings. Greetings, everyone, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. You actually said it all today. And I have to say, based on the United Independent Code System concept, I'm producing justiceradiostation.com. Call in 10 p.m. Friday Eastern. Will you say, Mr. Fuller, that our identity is being falsified?
Our identity is being falsified?
Yes, sir. We think we are. We think we are what we're working at.
Well, it could be. I don't know exactly what that means. But
how about the race classification?
But yes. Well, the white supremacists are always doing anything that will cause confusion. That's the main thing to remember. Whatever move they make is usually, in the modern sense, to cause confusion in the minds of their victims, the non-white people. Because whenever you have people who are confused, those people are dependent on the people who are not confused. So a confusion maker is always the most powerful person. 10 people in a room, the person who can cause the confusion will be the most powerful person, because then everybody will look to the person who is not confused. And the white supremacists always make sure that when they're around black people, or when they're involved with black people, directly and indirectly, even if they're thousands of miles apart, if they got those black people confused, they'll be the masters. That's just the way it works. That's the law of the universe. It applies to everybody. The person who is most confused will always be subject to the person who is the least confused.
Okay.
Always.
And we are going to leave it right there because, Mr. Fuller, we have 2 minutes and 20 seconds, and it is yours until we sign off. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Well, I'm just going to say that right along about now, black people some of the callers have implied about the needs of black people and the needs of white people. Well, right along now, as episodes, we definitely need each other because we need each other. If I'm a black person and I'm looking at all this junk that once was my house and the place that I call my home, and the flood has piled up everything here, and the flies all over the place, the heat is all over the place. I got snakes crawling all over what I got piled up in front of the house. And some white people come along and say, hey, buddy, we're here to help. We've assembled a crew here, and we can get all this stuff out of here if you want us to. Of course, if you don't, we'll pass on to somebody else. Well, no. You need them. You need them. That's what codification is about. Codification is not about being angry with white people. Counter-racist codification. It's not about rage. It's not about name-calling. You don't do none of that, ever. It's about correcting things that need correcting.
And with that,
so
Mr.
you're
Fuller, we
always
have to
looking
end
for
it.
Constructive results. That's it.
Okay. Constructive
Go
results.
to producejustice.com. That's
Thank
your guide.
Thank you. Sorry I had to cut it off, but they're pushing it right there. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, callers. Thank you for everything. We'll try to do better the next time. This has been the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., heard exclusively, getting ready to say exclusively on Blog Talk Radio, but guess what? You heard it. You're there. Thank you for your call. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, everybody. ProduceJustice.com.
Mr. Bobby, can I help you?